Hi, thanks for coming to League Taken. This is Mika. Here at League Taken, I talk about all things witchy, craft related, law of attraction, manifesting, esoteric, and everything else in between. Today, I want to talk a little bit about alchemy, mental alchemy. I think it's important, especially if you're practicing any sort of magic or manifesting, you have to sort of hone your mental alchemy skills. So, um, I think it's a great time to really delve into this topic because the way I see it, it is goal setting time. You know, a lot of us are going to be doing New Year's resolutions. We're going to be doing um, goal planning, planning out the year, or just, sort of, it's a time to take stock and, focus and, plot out how you want to handle 2020. Okay? Whether that's in all aspects of your life. So, mental alchemy is going to serve you well because you may incur setbacks. You may be dreaming a big that might feel too big. And if it feels too big, if you're thinking that 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to have some obstacles or some opposition along your path. So mental alchemy is going to come in handy. Trust me, as someone who constantly sets these big plans and I have big dreams and big ideas, and as I'm trying to carry those out, whether I'm using um, magic or some sort of working to make it happen, it doesn't matter. The point is, I still have to hold that dream. I still got to see it through with my energy, and you need to be able to shift your energy at times um, to handle those oppositions and obstacles and setbacks as they come, instead of just giving up or to begin to speak negatively on your goals, your dream. So, let me just start by saying when your mental alchemy, for me, I've deduced it down to just these couple things I'm about to talk about. And one of them is nothing's happening to you. And we've heard this all before, but we're not just, unless you're trying to do that, which hopefully you're not, kind of just flowing in the wind, whichever the wind whichever the way the wind blows, that's how you go, or someone else is making decisions for you. Even inactivity or not making a decision is making a decision. Even if you're choosing to not participate or not do something, you've still made a decision and there's a consequence to that. So there is no such thing as something happening to you. Now, some of us are born into situations that aren't ideal. Um, but as we begin to, build knowledge and to understand how life works, and, you know, we become independent or capable of being independent, things change at that point for you. And on some level, even as a child, you're developing the concepts of understanding that, you have some control over your actions because your actions have consequences. So um, you're not just in this life and you're at the whim of some god or a deity or the ancestors or spirit or the universe. You're not just, no, you determine where you want to go. Now, all that happens along that path, or how long it takes to get there, or if you ever get there, that's up to you. And there's going to be some external forces that are in the way, but how you navigate that, how you accept it, or just resign yourself to understanding maybe you can't continue that path, whatever the situation is, that part is up to you. It's a big responsibility. I think that's one of my issues with some of the bigger, religions out there, who, to me, is this whole thing of the concept of free will, right? So I think we all can agree on the free will thing, but where it gets a little difficult for me to kind of buy in is, well, the whole thing, but where it gets one specific thing that gets difficult for me to kind of wrap my mind around is this concept that this powerful being has so much control in your life. And when things are bad, it could be because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, or you're being punished. You're just being punished, or there's this plan you don't know anything about. Where I feel like there's chaos, which I'll get into in a moment. It's beautiful. It's chaos. It's a chaotic world that have, if you just outside of our world here, down here on Earth, when you leave the atmosphere and leave the planet and in space, there's chaos. There's there's so much other things going on, but it's beautiful, and it almost appears to be almost an organized type of chaos, which leads to bigger questions, but it's chaotic. There's things, moving at different speeds. It's very interesting, but when I think about it like that, and then I take that bigger concept and I apply it to us down here, being held by gravity here on Earth, I think, hey, you know what? There's a level of chaos here as well. We have the weather. Let's seriously think about this. The weather, which could dictate your travel plans. If you have an interview, if you need to get to a job, if you're trying to get to somebody you love, whatever the thing is, there are things that are way outside of your control, but might be the benefit to somebody else. There's so much other energy at play than your own. It doesn't mean it's against you or it's pushing you in a certain direction or it's holding you back. It's just that there's more than you. There's other elements involved. There's so much other stuff going on, which is why you have to have mental alchemy, because you have to have an understanding of this, and you won't feel like a victim in your own life. You won't feel like you're watching life happen instead of participating in your own life. I'm just looking down at my notes here. I'm very passionate about this topic, by the way. Mental alchemy. It's not just for when things get bad. It's also when things are okay. And understanding that it's okay for things to be okay. It's okay to be calm. For some of us who grew up in neighborhoods who maybe it wasn't so calm, and you had a decent parent or parents who were there for you and they took care of you, but the outside environment affected your family, affected how you lived. I grew up in a place that wasn't so awesome. Violence and I always say poverty brings out the worst in people, and it wasn't, it is what it is. So there are some inherent behaviors that come with that, and one of them is worrying. Even the concept of it's too good to be true, or this is the calm before the storm. I would hear things like that all the time. Or it basically, if things are going well, it's inevitable it's going to go bad, which is not okay to live your life thinking, because you're planning for it. You're telling the universe, please let this happen. It's a quiet, a very quiet but very powerful way of energy you're emitting into the universe, out into the ethers, if you will, and saying, hey, bring this to me because that's what I'm expecting. And I have been living I want to say I lived most of my adult life thinking like this. A good percentage, at least half. So don't do that. Don't do what I did. Hopefully if you're listening to this and you find that you're doing that, obsessively worrying about things, and it could be anything, whether it's money, the job, the kids, the husband, friendships, family. When I mean worry, I mean it's just obsessively worrying about so much stuff that you really don't even have control over. And even if you do, you just deal with the consequences. But why are we wishing for the worst? Mental alchemy helped me get past that, because one, I'm able to recognize when I'm doing it, and I'm able to use mental alchemy to flip it. So here's an example. Money, that's because I think we all could probably relate to that at some way, in some way. I remember there was a time I was getting physically sick, worrying about not having enough money to pay a bill or bills at the time. It was really hard. I was working, and I was living by myself at this time. This is just one time in particular. It was really bad, and my stomach started hurting so bad because I didn't have enough, and my bank account got garnished because I had owed some taxes. I worked this job. I didn't even have babies yet. I'm like in my early 20s. I didn't have any babies yet. I remember I did this job maybe for the summer, and it was it was under the table, or so I thought. I was just getting paid. I did not understand the concept of you have to pay your taxes, because they mentioned it, but it did not connect in my brain that was a thing. And I know it sounds silly now, but I didn't know any better. I mean, I'm like 20. I remember I was 20 years old. and they were just giving me my check and there's no taxes taken out, and they was like, oh, don't forget to do that. And I'm not even, listen, I wasn't even paying attention to when you're supposed to do your taxes. I had an idea, I had filed my taxes, but it just didn't connect. So long story short, they caught up with me years later, a couple of years later, and they garnished my wages. Thank goodness I only worked there a summer, because it wasn't that much. It was hundreds of dollars. I didn't make very much. I was a receptionist. But I'm at this point, I'm living on my own. I do have babies now, and the hundreds of dollars they took was the equivalent of my rent or my entire check. So I had no more money, except for what I had on me. I had no food. I had to go. It was everything. So I became sick. Like, my stomach hurt, and it was hurting for the day. It wasn't a thing where it's like, oh, I'm uncomfortable. It's like I caused a chain reaction. And that stood out to me to let me know that, oh my God, and a headache. I had, like, it was bad. And I refused food. I didn't want to eat. And I let myself get that upset. Now, if I had taken the time, then had I known this information, I would have been able to do what I like to call the worst case scenario. This is how I do it. Okay, since I'm already, when I'm that far gone, you can't come up to me and say, it's okay, just stop thinking about it. If you thought I could just stop thinking about it, why would I have a stomachache? I would have already stopped thinking about it. So what I have to do is I have to now play it out. I basically got to, speed up the the crazy car that I'm driving, and now I'm going to crash into the wall, because that's what I think is going to happen. So let's play it out. In my head, let's plan out the worst case scenario. What's going to happen? Okay, so you don't have any more money, you don't have any food. And then I started thinking, which, by the way, is solution thinking at this point. All right, so what's going to happen? All right, well, you won't have any food. What about gas? You don't have gas for the car. All right, well, you can't pay your bills. Okay, so they're late. You're going to be late on the rent. Because this happened when my rent was due. All right, so once I planned it out, I was like, okay, well, you can ask people for help. How much what if they don't give me enough? So the what if starts. Okay, so I planned it out even further. Started making real rational thought processes at this point, and then finally I was able to kind of back up from it and say, oh, okay, this is what's going to happen. By the way, I did end up doing this, but I would have done it sooner had I have the knowledge that I have now. Back then, like I said, I let the day go by. Actually, it was more than a day, because this happened like a Friday. So now I'm going into Saturday. I'm like crying. I'm freaking out. I'm just not seem to be equipped to deal with this. And I called my mother at the time, and that was the best thing I could have done, because she told me, okay, well, I don't have much. You eat here, I can't pay your rent, but you can eat here. I'll give you food. I have food in the freezer. So that problem solved with food, right? And I went from that to, I give you a couple dollars for gas, so that helped me with gas. All right, so I got those things. Now there was still the problem with the rent. And then I figured that out. But I would have been able to figure that out instantly by doing my method of the worst case scenario, because I would have already realized I had access to resources. Even if they were temporary, it was still a fix. It was still a solution to that issue. There are so many other things. My son going away into the military, it was not our plan as a family. That was not his plan. That was not the plan for him to go in the military. I'll just say that he was supposed to do college, and that didn't work out for him. So for me to sort of wrap my mind around that, because I was not pro any of my children going into the military. So for me to not wrap my mind around it, but accept what is happening, because it's happening, it's his life, to sort of accept being okay with his decision, I had to employ mental alchemy. And I slipped a few times, don't get me wrong. It wasn't like a one and done. I had to come back, because my emotions would rise up, and I would have these reactions, very intense emotional reactions and outbursts about the situation, not necessarily to him, but just about myself thinking about it. So that was something where, again, play out your worst case scenario and then pull back. Okay, so you saw it through. You saw, instead of spinning your wheels on worrying, what's the worst that's going to happen? Think of it. Think out the nasty part, the hurtful part, all of that. Think it through. And for me, and I don't spend a lot of time doing this, it's like I play it out right there in my head, right in that moment. Okay, so this. Okay, and I'm thinking, all right, well, this is going to happen. Okay, well, all right, well, what are you going to do about that? How are you going to feel? I'm not thinking I don't want it to happen. Well, I won't feel good. I know that. Okay, so what do we have any options? What can we do? And once I get that, I'm on a rational thought process again, and now I can sort of get back into solutions to my problem as opposed to just spinning my wheels in this obsessive worrying. And that's how I deal with mental alchemy when it comes to the worrying part. But I do just want to say this. Yeah, not getting overwhelmed. That was the other thing I wanted to talk about. So the worst case scenario is how I play things out. But even before it gets too bad, before I feel overwhelmed with anything, for me, I have the luxury, and I'm very grateful for that, where I will stop what I'm doing. I'm not at a formal job or anything like that, but I'll change activities. I will stop doing what I'm doing that's causing me to feel overwhelmed. If I'm having a conversation with someone and the context of the conversation I'm getting overwhelmed with, I'll check out. I'll check out the conversation. I'll check out everything that's happening. I check out. I will stop talking to you, and I'll try. If I try to gracefully get off the phone, but if it's a situation where I can't, I will just check out of that conversation because I am preserving my sanity, and that's how I handle it. That's what I do. I think about something else. It's funny, I was speaking to my daughter about this topic, and she said the same thing. When it gets too overwhelming, whatever it is, you do something else or you think about something else. And this is, of course, this is more of a preemptive strike type of way of dealing with it, where you still feel more in control and you didn't let yourself kind of go down a rabbit hole of worry and doubt and, fear and all that sort of stuff before, if you've, because there's to me, it comes in phases, but if you're at like phase one, you can make yourself just think of something else. If you've gone past phase one, then you need to play out the worst case scenario and then work back from there and say, okay, well, all right, so that's the worst that can happen. So like play it like a movie in your head. All right, so I saw it, it's done, so I can't do this or he's gonna go anyway. Let's just move forward. Like there's nothing left to do. And I wanted to just talk about handling setbacks because we're talking about goals and all that sort of stuff. Again, how I use mental alchemy as far as setbacks, obstacles, opposition, and things like that. The first thing is have realistic plans. To tie this more into practicing witchcraft specifically, when you're doing your spell work and all the ingredients, all the things you use, that's open to interpretation. The outcome, what you want, which is the goal, the thing you're manifesting. I do think it's important to have realistic expectations. Realistic expectations isn't limiting. It doesn't mean that you don't believe you can have more. Realistic could be a big thing or, a lot of money, whatever it is, money or man, I don't know, whatever the thing is. Realistic goals, though, realistic for you. I should say that, realistic for you. I like to go with examples. Realistic for me. When I wanted to manifest the home that I live in, I did not see a luxurious mansion. And when I mean mansion, let's think like over 10,000 square feet home. Mansion, like, for real mansion. I didn't see that. I didn't even see anything over 5,000 square feet. I am at the point in my life where my kids are adults now. My daughter she's sort of in not limbo, but she's in one phase of her life and she's going to another. Well, she'll eventually be gone. And once she's gone, she's going to be gone. My son is already gone. He joined the military. He's going to be gone for some time. And even assuming he doesn't re-enlist, he'll be doing his life, It's just me and my husband. So we wouldn't realistically want to have a large home to maintain, to heat and cool. That's not realistic to us, to me. So that would not be something I would want. I wouldn't, when I was planning this, I didn't script out about a large home. I didn't, as far as vision boards, put a large home on my vision board to represent what I wanted, because that didn't make any sense. I was looking more toward, well, really, I mean, what I have now, but I was looking more towards something that's like a cottage home, a ranch style home, if you're familiar with that. Um, Homey. I don't know how else it was in my head. So, and when I would write it down, those words meant something to me. Homey, you know, like I said, cottage, farmhouse style, that whole look, um, and feel. I wanted country, a little country, you know, but I didn't want to be in the country, but a little bit of those elements of my home, something that felt cozy. So that was realistic to me. So when I walked in this home and I saw it, I was like, this is it. It was easy to find. It was easy. It was not easy. It was attainable to me. Um, where we are now financially and everything else, and the area we're in, it was attainable. And I think because I was open to having realistic goals, a realistic plan about what I desired, it was something that I didn't have to wait very long for. Um, I think and I have something in mind. There's a friend, virtual friend that I have, and I noticed that she was discussing her visions, her vision board, and her plans, and her desires and dreams, and things she wanted to manifest in her life, and she liked the idea of manifesting luxury, which I'm on board with that too. Luxury into her life, and some of the images that she was using was very very luxurious, you know, multi-million dollar homes and cars, and you know, $1 million cars, and or hundreds of thousands of dollars in car value or whatever. I don't know that much about cars, but I know they were expensive. And you know, luxury handbags and all this sort of stuff, and she was putting that out, and I was like, okay. Now the home that she lives in now might be considered luxurious to some people. It was a pretty large single family home, you know, separate living areas, formal family room, you know, eat-in kitchen, still a formal dining room, you know, basement, all the extra rooms that you might consider, you know, a splurge for some people, who don't have that, you know, the extra living space. Um, I thought, you know, well, you could just really build on what you have, because you already have some luxury in your life, if you probably would just play that up in your own home. Um, but that's just me. So that's what I was looking at. But you know, I can't tell somebody else what they should want and what they should desire. But I also know that, you know, the person, she doesn't work, and her husband um, has a great career, but his career wouldn't have them in a multi-million dollar home. They would have to have had some other investments or things like that. And since she never spoke to something like that happening, realistically, that's a leap. Um, and I was always confused if she just wanted elements of the luxury, or if she was looking for something on that level. She would basically speak as if she wanted something on that level, not just elements of it. So I would say that was an unrealistic plan or desire. Um, it's not impossible, but it's a bit unrealistic. Doesn't mean you can't get it. Doesn't mean that this woman won't be in a mansion and won't have her multi-million or $1 million mansion, or her cars and all that sort of stuff. Because I think all things are possible. I think if you can plan it and you can dream it, it's in your realm of having. The How fast, and you know, based on the trajectory of things that are happening right now, she might be putting a lot of energy to bring that to her, as opposed to if she had wanted the elements of the luxurious lifestyle that the imagery she was seeing, she could have it in her home now, and she could have it in her life now. Um, you know, a trade-off, if you will. And I know that's not something people want to hear, but to me, it's part of how I do mental alchemy. It's substitution, it's taking away, it's adding, it's flipping things over, and taking it through a process to whatever the raw material it started with of how I was thinking of things, it may look like a completely different output, but I still feel like I got my desired outcome, or my goal was reached, or I won, for lack of better words. I still won the thing that I was wanting to have. I still got it. I think another good example of this is I wanted a new car. I wanted a car. And the way I got my car, it took two car accidents. One I was involved in, no one was physically injured. But it took that to happen for me to get a car. Now, if I was aware of what was happening as it occurred, once that car accident happened, I realized, and they said the car was totaled out, I knew exactly what was going on. All the manifesting, all the spell work, I knew where it led to. It was leading to this process and what that meant. So if I was someone who wasn't aware of this, I might be cursing the very thing I desired because of the process, which leads into chaos. Sometimes your blessing or the very thing that you desire is in chaos. And I also realize that that's not taught a lot or spoken about, because the idea, if there's mess, if there's opposition, if there's haters, if, whatever the situation is, or danger, that it's not for you. I do believe that you grow stronger and powerful when you're challenged. It doesn't mean that you should be consistently challenged. It doesn't mean that you should always expect or operate on a level that you expect opposition and obstacles to occur. But it's a chaotic world that we are in. So you probably will have some sort of opposition to something. And you can learn to grow with that, as opposed to using mental alchemy, as opposed to accepting, the obstacle has gotten my way, so that means I stop. That's not for me. And now, relationships, things like that. If you have goals in mind to want to be in I know at one point I did, and it was a loosely based desire. I think I was still developing it. I didn't trust myself enough to let it go, but I was slowly coming to the realization of the type of relationship that I wanted, a type of man that I wanted to be with. And when I finally decided, then the man appeared. But as I was going through the transition of this budding hope and desire, when I was going through that, so I was still sending some energy out. So I was getting a lot of situations that on a surface looked like they would work out, and they wouldn't. Not a lot, but a couple guys that I had dated over the years that I had been single. It 6 months here, a year there, that type of thing, where it's like, and it wouldn't get to the point where it was getting more serious. A little serious, but not serious enough, to warrant marriage or anything like that. And it was just one, they weren't even the same situations. It wasn't like, oh, these guys always cheat or they always do this. It was different situations happening for each person. So it was like, what is going on? But when I made a decision to move to Florida, which is where I met my husband, where I was guided by my intuition and guided by my ancestors, I became emboldened at that point, and I made a decision of what I wanted, as opposed to thinking what I didn't want, but what I really wanted. And once I did that, everything kind of just went into place. But that's a level of mental alchemy that I didn't know I was practicing by learning from those experiences, that raw material, and taking it through a process to give me something else, but still what I wanted, what I wanted, what I really desired. And what I really desired, I was able to act on it. I was able to send that out into the universe, and the universe responded. But handling the setbacks and all that sort of stuff, having a realistic plan to begin with, and understanding everything is not for everyone. Again, tough pill to swallow, especially if I get back to doing magical type of work. Oh my gosh, there are people who don't understand why, and I was one of these people, so I'm speaking from experience. They did spells, they don't work. They did say certain incantations. They don't seem to have any meaning. Outside of that, they felt it. They thought, they were all in. They had the desire. They did all the things right, and they still didn't get what they want. And it's really difficult for some of us to understand that you're not going to have everything you want the way you want it. I should say that. You may want children, but you may have to adopt. You cannot biologically, produce a child. You may have to adopt. That's one of those tough things that we don't want to talk about or deal with. But magic is supposed to be just that magic. Miracles, it makes anything happen. Well, you said you wanted a child. You're not going to be pregnant, and you have to understand that. That's the type of stuff that we have to contend with sometimes if you do this type of work. If you're intentionally manifesting things into your life, or like I said, use witchcraft, which I'm equating that to be pretty much the same thing. You have to understand everything's not for everyone, at least in the way that they want it. And I think that's pretty self-explanatory. It's hard to accept, especially if what you want is something that seems simple, is something you feel like you deserve to have: a roof over your head, a vehicle to drive. You're not even asking for anything fancy. Someone to love you, someone you can love. Maybe not in the way that you expect it. You want family, you want that situation. It might not be you making a family. It might be somebody adopting you into their family, even as an adult. A coworker who keeps inviting you to come over or hang out with them, and they're friends, and you're not realizing that's that family you don't know that you can have, that you've been asking the universe for. And her friend is the guy you might need to meet. All of that sort of stuff. You have to be open to it, and you have to be a little open-minded, which to me is basically mental alchemy, where you're practicing the concept of looking at that raw data, looking at that raw material, and seeing what it can become, and taking those opportunities and seeing where it takes you. And even if it wasn't what you thought it would be, that's okay. That could be a lesson in itself to use for something else. Hopefully that makes sense. The other thing I just want to say, as far as setbacks and things like that, there is a bigger plan at play, which I kind of alluded to. I have a desire for it not to rain. I'm getting married. Let's say this. I'm getting married, and Saturday, I don't want it to rain. Me, my bridesmaids, my whole wedding party, because we're having an outdoor wedding, all my guests, we are intentionally all saying we want it to be a sunny day. People who don't even practice any sort of magical life, we're all on the same vibe of sunny day. Meanwhile, there's another group of people who it's planting season. They planted all these things. They sure wish it would rain. If only the sky would open up and this rain would come, and just, we need this rain. We're at the, mercy of, possibly going into a drought. We need rain. You see what I mean about the power of the wills of, and then there's the actual nature itself with its own will. There's so many things at play. That's why I said there's chaos. There's so many energies moving in so many different directions. There's more than just what you want. And it's not even so much of what you want, somebody else wants it. It's you're here and you're trying to get here. There's so much happening in between, and that can delay you, set you completely off course, so far off course that you don't even want that thing anymore. And because you've been thrown into something else where that looks so much better over here, you would never have thought about this other life if you hadn't been thrown off. I think if we're all of a certain age, I think actually if you're an adult, you can see this. Because as a child, you thought, if I just had this, your first paycheck, if you were a teen, your check was $100 or $126. And you thought you were really balling out. And we know now that that's nothing. You can't live on that. That's great as a kid. to have $126, a paycheck for $126. You felt great. Um, but we know more now. Our life has gone a different path than where we were when we were a child, hopefully. And you see now, which you would have never been able to see then. Oh, wait, look at this path. I can make this money. I can do this. I could, or money's not even so much of an issue for me. I'm doing what I love. I know things will be provided for because I'm giving back. I'm doing what I love for the community or whatever it is. So your whole trajectory, everything changes. But you have to be receptive to that. You have to be open to the concept of thinking like that instead of having a me first and victim mindset, which unfortunately I'm seeing a lot of that. Even for the positive community, people who talk of law of attraction, and definitely in these more pagan communities, this concept of being cursed and hexed all the time, which would put you in the victim position now, wouldn't it? I'm not saying no one's cursing or hexing you or wishing you ill will, because that's real. There are people who do that. They don't even have the gift of understanding magic or on purpose doing it, but they still wish you ill will. We know this, so okay. However, you don't have that many enemies. Most of us don't. And we have people in our lives who are jealous and maybe hateful, but they only have the power that you give them. They can only know so much about your life, depending on how much you're willing to give to them or share with someone else who's telling them. So you have the control over that. And hopefully if you are practicing any sort of witchcraft, I hope that you do have protection of, so that's a whole other thing. But you have the ultimate control, not them. So, basically no hex or curse is gonna, make you have a bad life. If you're getting fired from your job, there was a reason. Yes, I know people are fired for reasons, maybe, for other reasons, there's racial issues and sexism and all that sort of stuff. But if you're telling me that someone put a hex on you or curse on you and you lost everything, I'm going to want to dig a little deeper and find out what was happening before this hex and curse. How was life? What was your everyday? What were your, your annual check-ins with your boss, your progress and all that sort of stuff? Did you do as well as you thought you did? How did you handle your money? Because there's too many other practical things that play here for me to arrive at you've been cursed. So, yeah. I'm just saying maybe you have a lot more to do with it than some evil spirit that was brought up just to ruin your life by this evil sorcerer. I'm sorry. I see so much of that. It's not funny, but it is kind of funny because I'm like, are you serious? So you have that many enemies that they're all out to get you. Okay. And then put them in a jar. That's what put this person in a jar. You know what? Maybe it's time for you to put yourself in a jar on a dang on time out for 2 seconds and reevaluate why you constantly have so much friction and issue with other people that they don't like. When I hear it's more than one, so more than one person is cursing you, the whole family's cursing you. Okay, so the whole community, everybody's out to get you. All right, I just want to make sure I want to know to what degree, this operation is that you're being cursed and hexed. But enough about that. Don't be a victim. You do have control. Yes, there are bigger forces at play. There's chaos going around us. But stay focused on what you want. Be willing to have realistic expectations on what you desire. And more importantly, have control over your mind. Hence mental alchemy. Have control over your thoughts, because that's really steering this ship, that what you think, your outlook on everything. So you want to get that under wraps, get that in control in your thoughts. Make sure you have control over your thoughts so that you're not going to down the rabbit hole of fear, worry, doubt, and you're at the point where you're like how I was having stomach aches. By the way, there's more stories of me suffering like that, just because these were things that I grew up seeing, and that was the response that I saw. No one told me or taught me that. It was shown to me, and I adapted it. That I just took on the same way of thinking, overthinking to the point of making myself physically sick. So don't be like me. Don't do that. Instead, hopefully, you can get to the part where you can think of something else. Phase one, and turn everything around, flip it around. Or if you see something that's negative, find a positive in it. Like my car accident situation. Once I realized it was going to be something to my benefit, I wasn't really concerned about anything else but that car. I didn't care about the accident. I didn't care about it. Nobody got hurt, so I didn't have to worry about that. I didn't care. I didn't care about that car being totaled. I didn't feel worried. I was just looking for. I was really excited about the car I knew I was going to get because I saw how things were going to go at that point. After multiple accidents, I said, okay, here we go. You get ready to get your car. So I actually got excited. But that's me. Thank you for watching. This is Mika here at Leap Taken, and if you enjoy the video, go ahead and like it, and if you have not subscribed, please subscribe. Thanks again. Bye.